Hello there. Welcome to Commodities. Let's get to the energy complex. Russia's leader, Vladimir Putin, warning that Moscow may consider attacking ships of countries supporting Ukraine if a surge in strikes on Moscow's tanker fleet doesn't come to an end. Ukraine has been launching attacks at record levels on Russia's oil refineries and did cause serious damage to a key terminal that handles oil from Kazakhstan. And meanwhile, the Russians have been attacking Ukraine's energy infrastructure. They're trying to torpedo morale ahead of the winter. And let's have a look at the metals. Gold higher and, gold now down. Gold was gaining earlier and silver got to a record high. So gold after its surge, I'm so used to saying gold higher, after its climb in the past few weeks, losing a little bit of altitude today. But silver trading at record levels once again during the session, although it is down marginally. Some stories we're watching, of course, include Vale potentially teaming up with Glencore in Sudbury to develop a mining project. That would be a major alliance in that part of the world. Vale has signed that agreement with Glencore Canada. They have adjacent properties near Sudbury, and if it all works out, they'll move the new operation to a joint venture. Okay, let's get to liquefied natural gas. A report from ATB indicates that this country traditionally in natural gas has been a price taker rather than a price setter. But our guest says this dynamic may be shifting with LNG. We're joined now by Mark Parsons, Chief Economist at ATB Economics. Mark, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Just to update us, so there's quite a few projects. We know, obviously, the big one, LNG Canada, is up and running, but there's quite a few projects in the works to export LNG from this country. We are gaining momentum here.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, but there's finally some action on this front. Of course, LNG Canada Phase 1 up and running. That is not fully operational, but it's gradually getting to full capacity. And then we have wood fiber LNG, Cedar LNG under construction, and a few other projects proposed. Of course, LNG Canada Phase 2, Sealisms, and some smaller projects. So really, we're in a situation where we could be at 50 million tons per annum by the end of the decade, which is actually Mark Carney's goal. This is a structural shift in the gas market. Much needed takeaway capacity to the Asian market. And hopefully we won't be subject to the whims of the U.S. consumer all the time, because it's resulted in massive discounts on our gas.
Yes, and of course we did see infamously Alberta natural gas prices theoretically going negative this year.
Yeah, that's right. So this is what happens when you really only have one customer other than yourselves in Canada. When that storage gets high, there's just no other outlet for it. And that's exactly what happened. You saw some pullback in production. It's coming back, and fortunately, AECO prices have bounced back in anticipation of more LNG takeaway capacity. But really, we need to get into a longer-term situation where we can access that overseas markets. And, we not only need for gas, we need for oil, too, which is kind of related to the decision last week on the MOU.
So I think you said by the end of the decade, we could be exporting 15 million tons a year of LNG in theory?
We could get that to that level of capacity. That's ambitious if all the projects go ahead as planned. But even with the projects under construction, you're getting close to 20, right? So, we're making a lot of progress.
We're still a bit behind, though, because America exported something like 88 million tons last year, 2024.
Yeah, they're a decade in front of us. It's interesting because Canada actually has advantages over the U.S. market. Colder temperatures here, which we know who likes the cold. Well, data centers do, and LNG terminals as well, because it reduces the power requirements for liquefying. We're closer to market, about half the days for shipping times compared to the Gulf Coast. And then we have abundant, low-cost feedstock and natural gas. So, It's, I think we're finally going to be capitalizing on some of these long-term advantages we've always had. We just needed the capacity, and we're finally getting it.
And it's interesting, you may have mentioned the data centers, of course, like the cold because they get hot. And that's Alberta's pitching that. But also liquefying the darn stuff is easier here, or in BC than it would be in Qatar, for example.
Exactly. So I think the average temperature in Kitimat is like 7 degrees or something for the year. Gulf Coast, you're in the 20s. Oof. So there you go. Your starting point is a natural advantage. We're colder. And same thing with data centers, of course, because they have to be cooled. We're already cold here.
It looks as though gas pipelines run into less opposition, not none. I mean, we have the Coastal GasLink got into a head-to-head with some members of the Indigenous community, but it looks like gas pipelines to feed the gas to the BC coast are a less contentious issue.
Yeah, I mean, Coastal GasLink did still have some challenges. I think we've learned a lot from previous pipeline projects, Coastal GasLink and Trans Mountain expansion, about how to engage with Indigenous communities. A lot of talk now of like Indigenous equity ownership in projects. So I think that's going to be really important as we look at expanding pipeline capacity further.
And of course, the government is all over this. The second phase of LNG Canada has been well earmarked as a favourite project of the Prime Minister.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's important to recognize that, there's a lot of talk about Alberta, making some progress with the federal government, and that's true with this MOU. But the federal government actually needs this to happen as well to reach their own goals. Mark Carney's talked about $1 trillion of private investment he wants to catalyze. He wants to double non-U.S. exports over the next decade and turn Canada into an energy superpower. Well, how are you going to do that? You can't be hostage to one market. You have to export your product overseas. And I think to realize those investment and export goals, he's going to need the energy sector to get there.
One thing, and maybe this is inevitable, but a lot of the equipment for these LNG facilities gets brought in from abroad. Wouldn't Canada get more? I know there is a lot of work provided for Canadians, but it seems a pity that we're not making more of this LNG liquefaction equipment in this country.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. You got to import a lot of the content. But I think what's important to recognize is that, like with Alberta's oil and gas industry, those supply chains didn't develop overnight. Right? It takes some time. And the more we get into this business, the more likely it is that we're going to be able to fulfill those supply chains ourselves domestically. It was just pretty new to the game right now, and so it'll take some time.
Thank you very much, Mark. Mark Parsons, really appreciate it. Mark Parsons, Chief Economist at ATB Economics. Up next, we're going to check out Montage Gold. That company taking over the shares it doesn't own in a company called African Gold to get bigger in Cote d'Ivoire. We hear from the CEO of Montage Gold after this. Been a tidal wave of M&A takeovers in the gold space. Montage Gold is the latest. It's set to acquire the shares it doesn't own in Australia's African Gold. The idea here is adding to its presence in Cote d'Ivoire in West Africa. We're joined by Martino De Ciccio, CEO of Montage Gold. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the show.
Thank you for hosting us.
Before we get into this latest acquisition, just remind us, what are you doing in West Africa already? Are you entirely in Cote d'Ivoire?
Yes, so the last time we met was about 20 months ago. At that point, I had just joined Montage Gold. Since then, we launched construction in November of last year, and we're set to be in production by this time next year. So today we have the largest build going on in the gold space worldwide with Montage Gold in Cote d'Ivoire.
And what's the name of the project where you'll be mining?
Our Koné project in Cote d'Ivoire that already has over 5 million ounces of resources and on track to discover a lot more.
And what production are you looking at annually from Koné?
Well, that's the exciting part. The study showed on the first years over 330,000 ounces, but that was just based on 2 deposits. In the last year, we've added 7 new deposits. Those are growing and more is coming. So we expect to boost production to well above 330,000 ounces for the first years.
We're looking at some viz here. It shows what looks like a lot of housing. I know it's not all housing, but are you going to be housing workers on site when you're in operation?
We've built the permanent camp already. We've also finished the relocation site, so built over 300 homes where people are moving into their homes this week. In fact, we have over 3,000 people on site, but most of those people are sourced locally. So over 90% of our workforce has been trained by us within neighboring villages and towns.
What were there informal miners in the area, and how did you have to negotiate a settlement with them?
No, so we did land compensation, which is regulated in Côte d'Ivoire. We have strong relations with government and with our local stakeholders, which has allowed us to move very quickly. So by the time we joined last year in February, we were able to launch construction 6 months later, and that included the period in which to staff ourselves, get our environmental permit, mining permit, secure 950 million of financing, and obviously launch construction. So in West Africa, and in particular in Côte d'Ivoire, we're able to move very quickly to unlock value for our stakeholders.
And you said that you're on the world arena. Yours is a significant project, this build out at Koné.
Today, we have one of the largest builds worldwide and by far the largest in a single asset company. So the idea for us was joining Montage, building Koné allows us to be very relevant in the gold space day one as soon as our Koné project is put into production. And now because the construction is going very well, we're on budget, on time, and exploration has been going well, we've been able to look ahead at what can come next. And that's where we decided to do the acquisition of African Gold last week.
That's interesting. You were at Endeavour Mining. You were Deputy Chief Financial Officer. And Endeavour Mining is a giant player in West African gold.
Well, we're quickly catching up. So our mine should be in production very soon. We now have a pipeline of projects with DDV that comes with African Gold, and we've been looking at building out an exploration pipeline as well to be able to source the next projects organically.
And you earned your BCom in finance from McGill in Montreal. Is that where you're from originally, Martino, Montreal?
Yes, indeed. From Montreal. I've been working in the gold space for almost 20 years. I've been going to Côte d'Ivoire for the majority of that. So it's allowed us to have a good network in country, both with government, but also with local stakeholders, and being able to quickly staff a team.
And then tell us about this African Gold acquisition. How many potential ounces does that give you?
For us, if I backtrack a bit, we made the initial investment in March of this year, where we took a first toehold over 17% stake. But most importantly, we negotiated operatorship. So it's our team that's been driving the exploration for the last 6 months. So we understand this asset better than anyone else. Since we've joined, the resource has increased already from 450,000 ounces to 1 million ounces at 2.5 grams. We are now doing a 40,000 meter drill program and expect to further increase this resource next year.
And then you have a bunch of individuals involved in the company who were with Redback Mining, which was bought ultimately by Kinross, and they had projects in Ghana and other places.
That's correct. So Montage was the assets that were there were in Redback before, went into Orca and got spun out into Montage prior to us joining. And since we've joined, we've been able to move this project along very quickly through the permitting and construction phases. And now we're well on track to being able to build on our strategy of creating a multi-asset premier African gold producer by bringing Koné into production on time, on budget, and looking at the future with the DDV project acquired from African Gold as the next project to build. Again, we have our own construction team. We bought our own equipment, and therefore we're quickly able to mobilize our team to launch the next build in the same country.
Thank you very much, Martino. Martino De Ciccio, CEO of Montage Gold. Right, we're going to be talking graphite after the break. China dominates the world's supply. We're going to talk to the head of one company that wants to open a mine producing graphite in New York State. Titan Mining is coming up after this. Last week on Commodities, we talked about samarium, yet another exotic metal that has turned into a bone of contention between China and the US. It's one of those essential materials for military purposes, among other uses. Let's talk graphite now. We're joined by the CEO of Titan Mining, Rita Adiani. Rita, thank you very much. You plan to open a graphite mine in New York State, and you say this will be a unique asset for the U.S. Tell us a bit about what you're proposing.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us on. For us, really, this is a very unique opportunity, as you said. It is the first time in about 70 years that the United States will be seeing graphite, end-to-end graphite production coming domestically. I'm very pleased to report that next week we will actually begin processing on a small scale, which is probably going to be about 1,200 to 2,400 metric tons. And by 2028, we're looking to ramp that up to about 40,000 metric tons, which is approximately close to 50% of U.S. domestic demand. So it's obviously a big milestone for U.S. national supply chain security, and we're very excited to be building here in New York.
Sorry, what percent of U.S. graphite supply will you supply, do you think?
It's approximately 50%.
Wow.
So the current domestic demand is close to 75,000 tons, and we will be looking to supply 40,000 tons by 2028.
Now, we know graphite's used in batteries. It's also used, though, in a wide variety of industrial applications. You are going to get up to $120 million US in backing from the US government. Are they concerned about a strategic vulnerability when it comes to graphite?
Absolutely. I think, graphite is one of those things, as you said, has a very wide use case. It goes into everything from industrial applications such as, lubricants for downhole drilling, all the way through to very strategic applications such as, coatings for missiles and for ammunitions. So certainly, that's one of the main reasons that the metal is very high up on the critical materials list, which was all put out by the DOE, where it kind of ranks amongst, some of the rare earths metal complex. And that's largely obviously driven by batteries, which the whole world is sort of moving towards, but also through the very specific defense uses case that, we currently have.
How much will your capex be for this graphite mine?
The capex estimated to build it is about $156 million, and we just put around the economics of it out yesterday. So it is a $156 million build with, as you say, approximately $120 million in indicative financing from United States Exim. So it is one of the most capital efficient projects.
Now, one of the big choke points with graphite, like a lot of the rare earths, is the processing. So where will your graphite be actually processed?
So we have this unique ability to excavate, to process, and take it all the way up to 99.5% in New York State at the site that we currently operate at. And we'll also be going further downstream to coat it and to spherinize it in later years within the same site in New York State. So it'll all be done domestically, not too far off from the mining operation.
You have some pretty interesting directors. John Boehner, the former Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, and also George Pataki, a former New York State Governor. So you have some pretty distinguished directors.
No, we have, and we've had them, on the board for the last 7 years, and they were involved with the opening of the zinc mine, which was, a while ago. And they've not only sort of actively participated in helping us with the community, helping us with the state, but as you say, to have that, sort of heavyweight political leadership has really helped us maneuver the system and sort of, kind of stand to the forefront really with other critical materials companies in the United States.
It sounds like, though, you're going to face possibly a reaction from China. They might try to cut the price on you to undermine you. What would you do if that happens?
So I think, the bottom line here is, and it's not just a, U.S. sort of prerogative. I think we're seeing this in Canada, we're seeing this in Australia. What we're moving towards is, most countries trying to build an ex-China supply chain and an ex-China supply curve. A lot of the protections which we currently believe are forthcoming are, currently there today really in the way of tariffs, be it 232 or, other tariffs or other protections in place from the Commerce Department. And we do believe that, that form of protection will continue, whether in the current form or another form such as price floors. So we certainly do believe that China is going to be a threat. But, as you might remember, not too long ago, China instituted export controls on graphite. So I think they have concerns around meeting their own demand. And therefore, we do believe that, we will be a very viable, competitive supplier, not only within the United States, but in the long term, hopefully within North America.
Tell us a bit about your background, because you graduated in law from the University of Oxford and the University of Sheffield, but I see you did attend the mining school at the University of British Columbia. So what was your gig before this, before you joined Titan Mining?
Before this, I've spent about 20 years of my life in mining. Previously, as you referred to it, I was a lawyer and then moved on to become a banker at Soc Gen in London, and then moved on to private equity. But for better or worse, the mining industry likes me and I like the mining industry. And prior to this, I was actually working in a role where we were taking a copper mine into development in Arizona. So really for the last 5 years, my focus has really been on critical materials projects in the United States.
And you're part of the Augusta Group, which is headed up by Richard Wark. He was a co-founder of Equinox. He's been around for a long time. Thank you very much. We've no more time, Rita. I hope you come back soon as this project moves forward. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for your time today.
Rita Adiani, CEO of Titan Mining. Titan is part of the Augusta Group, which is headed up by Richard Wark, as I mentioned. Thanks very much for watching the show. Email us, commodities@bnnbloomberg.ca, and The Close is coming your way next.